What is up? It's your boy Johnny Shreve, aka Mr. Tell Like It Is. Welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, we're reacting to Dr. Mike's video, the 5 biggest mistakes that cost me huge gains. My little spin on it will be my 5 biggest mistakes that not only cost me huge gains, but also got me injured. And I'm dealing with it right now. So this video is for you guys to watch so it can help you prevent some of the things that myself and Mike have done. Let's get into it.
I did a lot of ego lift swinging around when I was younger. I would train a lot at the Jewish Community Center of Metro Detroit.
Like, me and Mike are actually neighbors. I live right across from Detroit. I guess we had this kind of parallel life. Majority of my injuries and mistakes happened more so when I started bodybuilding. For most of my training has always been geared around athletic performance. I was training to always increase my athletic performance, meaning I wanted to be faster, stronger, more powerful, more explosive, and whatnot. That's what I trained. Then when I got into bodybuilding, I was like, I'm just gonna add on more reps and then continue to train the way I did. Quite like Mike, momentum was my thing. I knew how to use my body because I was very powerful and very explosive. And I'm like, hey, if I'm doing these reps, I might as well use some of this momentum I know how to use and control and chuck some weight around. That didn't help. Let's listen to a little bit more of what Mike's got to say.
Everyone there that was pretty jacked, and by pretty jacked, I mean more jacked than my 100-pound, 5'2" freshman year of high school self, always used the 35s on the side of the curl bar. And I figured if I was going to get jacked, I'd also have to use the 35s. But you see, I was not sufficiently strong enough to lift the 35s on the side with anything like good technique. So I did a whole lot of this and moving around. And what I got wrong was that you have to meet your body where it is now, not where you want it to be. So pick weights that you can do with good technique, no matter how small they are.
I agree completely. And I've always said this, guys, progressive overload doesn't have to be where you have to put on plates and plates and plates. And I made the mistake when I was younger. If I demonstrate an exercise without any weight, they say it's a ladder raise, and I say, raise your arms aside like this and then control it down. I say you should be able to do that exact same thing with no matter how much weight you put in your hand when you can control it. So you're only progressively overloading when your form is not compromised. When it comes down to it, easy way I look at progressive overload and adding more weight, it looks like this. If we have say a minimum rep range and a maximum rep range, we want to pick a weight that's going to challenge us in that lower rep range. Then once we get into that lower rep range, we're trying to progressive overload rep after rep after rep until we get that maximum rep range or even more, and then that's when we increase weight. But your form can't change. Yes, you can have a little bit I would say 10%, 15% form breakdown. Let's just say you're doing bench. The back come up a little bit, tiny bit, whatever, or you're kind of squirming a bit, we're doing a little bit of this, that's fine. But if we're back's doing this and we're like this and we're, no. So when it comes down to it, you can only progress in terms of reps and weight if and only if your form stays consistent. And that's gonna reduce your risk of injury. And that's gonna give you overall better gains in the first place.
I used to cut my reps high in squats all the damn time. And the reason was just pure unadulterated ego. But then I actually started competing in powerlifting. And so I had to start squatting. And the cool thing about powerlifting as a gateway into good squatting technique is there's a standard. You have to squat below parallel, otherwise it doesn't count. So I started squatting to powerlifting depth and slightly below. Everything after that is history.
I was similar to that for a bit, but then the reason why I wasn't able to go lower was I was training with a buddy of mine who's a powerlifter. And I was one of those guys who, again, I'm a football player, and I'm squatting with the bar literally on the top of my neck, right at the top of the traps. And the problem when you squat with the bar at the top of your traps, because when we're trying to squat, we're really trying to really create a good balance of your center of mass. But there's always that natural little bit of a tilt that happens. And if the bar is sitting on your neck, then when you try and go down lower, your neck does this and things get messed up and we're getting a bunch of this happening. So he's like, why don't you strip the weight, we'll lower the bar a bit, and then start squatting. And I was like, holy geez, I can squat more. I was bottoming out at 5 plates for 5 reps. That's the only thing I can get. And I was only 27 at the time. And then took the weight off, put the bar down a little bit, and all of a sudden I was squatting more. The mistake I made wasn't that I wasn't going down low enough. It was now that I was going down low enough, I wasn't engaging my core. The problem with that is I have something called lower lordosis. It's basically your back shaped you got shaped like a duck. You got duck butt. You can rest a cup on my ass. So for me, when I was squatting, I would wrap that belt on tight, put the bar, get underneath the bar, unrack, and then I would go, and I'd wrench my back. That's what I thought at that time was a good idea to create stability. I would just tie this thing up super tight, and then I'd create an even bigger arch in my back. And then I would start squatting, and I was squatting below parallel. I was getting super deep too. But the problem with going low and not engaging your core and having, 400 pounds, 500 pounds on your back, compressing your discs is what happens. Well, after years of doing that and doing higher reps, because like, again, I'm talking about the mistakes I made. These are mistakes piled up. So when it came to momentum, there was that one when it came to squatting. So I was powerful and fast, and I would be like, without engaging my core the entire time. Guess what happens? Your lower back's kind of not protected. And then you're just letting the weight just sit there and press you right down on your back. And then you got the weight from the floor pushing up this way. Then you got your poor little disc sitting in the middle. And then, years later, find out that I have deteriorating vertebrae because my core was not engaged. Now, they pinpoint that was the reason? No, but they damn well said, yeah, that's basically what your problem was. So I had to really go around and reteach myself how to engage my core the entire time. Engage your core is massive. Plus, it's gonna give you that much more power throughout the entire lift. So for me, it wasn't necessarily just cutting the rep short, it was going low without engaging my core. And you put those two things together and add some weight, you're asking for some back injuries. Engage your core, tighten it up, flex it. Act like you're constipated and you're trying to push a piece of doo-doo out. It's the only way I can basically express it to you guys.
I would avoid machines as much as I could. And I just thought machines were for soft mouth. Like, that's it. Like barbells, buck dumbbells, bodyweight shit was hardcore. I just didn't want to use machines for the same reason most guys don't put on makeup when they're in college. Like, that's like a thing like women do or something, right? It's too coddling. It's too easy.
I get what he's saying. But for me, machines were all part of it. Machines were something as, to me, as important as everything else in the gym. The problem for me, when it came to using machines, I would just get in there and huck and chuck them. When you're getting into machines, machines are great. But just because you're in the machine and it's basically engineered the way it's supposed to do so it's gonna hit the muscle that you're targeting, you still have to be active when you're in there. And a lot of mistakes people make when they're in the machine is that they get in, like I used to get in there, and I would just, there was no floor to core back in there for me. It was just like get in that B and just that's what I did. In my mind, I was training for football still. The only difference is we're gonna put on some reps, right? And this is how I trained. But you have to be just as active in the machine as you would if you're doing free weights. And that's my mistake I made. So when it came to the hammer strength high row machine or anything, it was just getting I'm just hucking and chumming, ripping and gripping. Thanks, GVS taught me that one. I like that one. Ripping and gripping. You want to grip first and then rip. You know what I'm saying?
Holy shit, did I make this for years. I trained to failure on every single working set of every single exercise, of every single session, every week of the year. And I did this for years, wholly from just manhood BS, the same ego bullshit. If you guys see a thread running through here that makes sense, I just had a ton of ego, man. There's no other way to say it.
I remember last time we had a little chit chat at Doc Mike in his studio, same studios right now. And we were talking about some mistakes we made back in the day. And I was like, you were a football player and you got that football mindset and it's like, you got a go type thing, 2-minute drill, like end of the quarter, no rest, no days off. That's exactly one of the mistakes, the big mistakes that got me injured. It was like, how many times I've had my body being like, yo, Johnny, today's a good day to not go to the gym. Just sit your ass at home and chill out. And it would tell me in a very obvious way. Like I'd be limping. Like there'd be bruising or swelling on some part, like on my elbow. You know what I mean? Like both my elbows got like bursitis. I remember I had the worst bursitis in my elbows. I would touch it and be like, oh, I'd be literally like on the ground, like, oh my God. And if anyone's had bursitis before, man, it is a B, it sucks. And I would have clearly my body's like, Johnny, sit your ass down, quit that no days off nonsense, and rest up. And I'm like, nah, man, no days off, screw you. And then I get an elbow sleeve and chuck it on and pull it up, like, no more pain. I'll try and find ways around pain. When like pain, guys, is a good thing. Pain is a way that your body's telling you to like chill out. It's like when there's like a little bit of pain, it's kind of like, psst, it's like, hey, bro, you might want to, just calm down a bit. And it's not, train today, or just, I would just relax a little bit today. I was the kind of guy who was like trained to fail, but my mistake I would do would be like, I would ignore all the signs of injury. Like I am a definite train, no days off like an idiot, but those no days off mindset would make me not hear my body give me clear signs to like, stop. I feel like so bad, if I don't go to the gym, I feel like, I'm I'm being lazy or something, you know. I hear the same things from clients, and I'm like, if you don't go to the gym for a day, you're not gonna lose all of your gains. In fact, if you don't go to the gym for a week, you're not gonna lose all your gains. What's gonna happen to you is that those little nagging injuries that are now like not nagging, they're actually like maybe semi-serious, can actually heal up so you can go back to the gym. Don't ignore injury.
The fact that I had a bunch of friends who were getting really serious into competitive powerlifting, specifically Mike Romanelli, Ben Schweitzer, and Trevor Fettner, and because they started training with reps in reserve, like 2 reps in reserve, in part because of that, and in part because of point number 5, I'll tell you in a sec, they just got bigger and stronger than Nick and I. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here, man? I'm the guy that's supposed to know the things, and these guys are beating me at my own game.
And that's a good point he's making. Like, when it came to me and why I started getting into like not training to failure, was basically like, I can't train to failure. Going through doing the research on my own, being a coach and understanding that, you know, finding some literature that actually says like, you know, we don't have to go to failure. And I totally recommend going to failure once in a while so you understand what failure feels like. So when you're trying to measure having 2 reps in reserve or a 8 RPE, well, you're only gonna really know what that is if you go to failure. You have to go to failure here and there to get a clear understanding of what 2 reps to failure feels like. 2 reps in reserve, 8 RPE, right? Because if you never go, then how do you know what failure is? But it's not necessary. And the funny thing is like the same thing for me, that I've been able to keep my gains and get better gains in the later half of my bodybuilding career because I wasn't going to failure. All of a sudden, like, oh my God, not only am I healing faster, I'm getting better gains, not feeling as shit, and I'm taking a little bit of a break. So do you have to go to failure all the time? You don't. Is it necessary? Here and there. Say it's your first year of training. January's around the corner. That first week, you're not going to failure. Do not go to failure that first week. If you decide to go to failure that week, you're gonna quit because the DOMs are gonna be so damn bad. First week of being like so motivated in the gym, and you like, you know, you smash out some sets, you went to crazy failure, and you're like, man, I feel it, man, my chest is like, oh, I feel it. And that day, like, oh, my chest is like, my back, oh, my legs. And then all of a sudden by like the third day, you're like, oh, my chest, my back, my legs. And that shit doesn't heal for a minute because you've never had DOMs in your life. You're done. You're not going back to the gym. And you can't afford to have a bunch of days off when you first started training. So when you're in your first year of training, you're gonna wait until like, you know, you're well into like, you're in your year, not like the first month, but like wait until your, you know, your form is good, you can control the weight, and then you push a little bit of intensity, and then we're gonna go into that failure. Because if you're thinking about failure when you first start, when you're training, you're sadly mistaken. Your first thing in your mind should be training efficiency. I need to be able to move these weights effectively with good form, and then once I can do that, then I'm gonna start turning up the intensity knob, and then we can go to failure. But when you do get to that point, go to failure, 1 set for each exercise, and then just do it for like a week. Just so you can see, I mean, you can even do just one, like if it's chest, just do 1 set to failure. Back, 1 set to failure. Legs, 1 set to failure. Shoulders, 1 set to failure. So each muscle group, you've been to failure and you know what it feels like. So then now you can be like, yeah, I had 2 reps in reserve because I know what failure feels like, and that definitely was 2 reps from failure.
I didn't deload for the longest time, for like 6 years of my lifting career. And what happened was I would train balls to the wall until I got way too much cumulative fatigue. And I didn't know what cumulative fatigue was. I did not know that term. And my strength would plateau. I'd switch exercises, but the gains still weren't that great. Eventually I would burn out. I would switch to mostly super easy wussy machine moves for a week or 2 weeks or something. And I would get some swag back because I was just training with much less volume and much less intensity. That was basically an auto deload. Maybe I'd take a few days off. And then because I was young and full of piss and vinegar, my cumulative fatigue would fall off, and then I'd get right back into stupidity with no deload in sight. So one thing I came up with after this was, if you don't deload, your body will deload for you. That's what ended up happening.
That's a great tip for him. That's a mistake he made. I'm gonna add to you my mistake as well too. I didn't know about deloading. I would train until my body didn't feel good, and then I would just switch things up. I would literally go find ways to train around it. My lower back was hurting, which it was usually at the time. Most of the time, I'd be like, oh, my lower back hurts. And I'm gonna go train something. I'd be like, okay, so my lower back hurts, and it's leg day today, so I'm just gonna do some leg pressing and some leg curling, and you know, anything that would avoid my back being loaded, instead of being like, yo, man, just take a break. And I didn't take a break. It's really good to make sure we're doing some deloads. Don't wait until your body's completely just torched, and then like, I guess I gotta take a deload now. Taking deloads is a great way to continue to progress in weight, because you can still progress during a deload week. Just because you're not pressing, you know, the weight you're doing on your actual training week Deloads give you the ability to still continue to make improvements and make gains. The biggest mistake for me was the majority of my athletic career, mobility was my thing. I was mobile. I took time out to do mobility. Obviously, because I was programming our programming, I would take time out to do some stretching. All those things I would always do. Soon as I got into bodybuilding, went out the window. I started my career at 198. I finished at my biggest, I would say off season at I topped out at 275. On stage, I topped out at 234, right? So on stage peeled. So you're looking at 30-ish pounds I put on of muscle and 25 more pounds of water and fat. So all that weight that I put on and my mobility, stretching was like, because I was naturally flexible and that would be my only stretching I would do. And it went out the window, and that aided to a lot of the injuries that I've had. A lot of the stupid shit that happened to me. From training with momentum, from not taking, and listening to my body when it's saying it's injured, from, not taking days off, to, just not even stretching is the biggest thing. So when you're at the beginning of your journey, it doesn't really matter if it's the beginning or the middle, but especially at the beginning, you want to continue to make sure your body is mobile and flexible while you're adding muscle, because adding muscle means you're shortening muscle. Muscle gets big and then it gets short. That's why some people, when you see big ass guys, are kind of like crept up like this, right? Make sure you make mobility, stretching like the priority. When it comes to stretching, when it comes to mobility, it comes to full range of motion, to controlling weight. It doesn't mean you're not going to get injured. It just means it's going to reduce the risk of injury by a long shot, like by a lot. Make sure you're doing your stretching and your mobility. If you're not right now, start. And I can promise you that a lot of you guys are not doing it, because every time I talk to somebody, I have a consult, they'll ask me questions about like, yo, should I train with my shoulder? My shoulder's doing this, my leg's doing this. And I'll be like, do you stretch? We've been on this call for, about 30 minutes now, and I haven't heard you say a peep about mobility or stretching. And like, yeah, no, I don't. Aha moment. That's why. Learn the lessons that we've taught you today and apply it to yourself. And be like, I'm going to avoid all the things that Johnny and Mike did. Because if I do that, my fitness journey is going to be absolutely amazing. Could be damn injury free, gains galore, and just feeling good. Because guess what, man? I don't remember a day in my life I have not been injured since I've been playing football. I mean, I played football my entire life and then doing this. But there has not been a day where I got out of bed and was like, man, I got nothing going on. I'll get out of bed and be like, my hip a little bit. I'm like, I get up, I gotta wiggle around and do a little bit of stretching and shit. And then get up and, wallet it off. And then by the time, 10 minutes comes, I can actually move around like I'm a human again. So guys, in all seriousness, take account what we said. We're saying these things to you guys so you can have a better fitness journey than we did. Anyway, guys, for coaching guys, fill the application out, the link in the description below, johnandstreetfitness.com. Get on a 50-minute call with me. We're gonna talk about your goals. I'm gonna see if we can find a way to make sure we reach them together. Till next time, you know how it is. Iron sharpens iron, progressive overload your life. In the meantime, keep dream chasing. Peace.